folks, it's Jeff here. Just a quick reminder, if you're loving Disney Coast to Coast, there are a couple of easy ways that you can support the show. We'd love it if you could rate and review us on iTunes, or wherever you listen to the show. This is a simple way to help other Disney fans find us. Also, go ahead and share your favorite episodes on social media and be sure to tag us. You can find all of our social media information at DisneyCoastToCoast.com. And finally, I just want to say thank you to all of you who listen every week. Your support is very appreciated, and we love that you're enjoying our Disney geekiness. Now on with the show.
Are you craving a trip on Space Mountain? Well, we've got the next best thing. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePaoli, and today on the show I have a very special guest, Kevin Perjurer from Defunctland. Hello, Kevin. How's it going?
Hi, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. For the folks who don't know what Defunctland is, why don't you tell them a little bit about it?
Whoa, that's a loaded question. It's a lot of things. It's a YouTube series. It's a podcast. It's a VR experience, soon to be book, maybe. Essentially, what I do is I talk about the extinct attractions and parks around the world. That can range from anything to Disney, Universal. We go to the Cedar Fairs around the United States. We've even gone overseas to Nara Dreamland, and we've done Alton Towers in the UK. I mean, anything that is no longer existing, whether it be a ride at a park or the entire park, I talk about it. So that's basically what I do.
You enjoy attractions after they're gone.
Absolutely. I think it's the art form that is least appreciated is live attraction entertainment in this sense. I mean, you can never experience it again and how it's supposed to be. And how it's supposed to be experienced. It's just the only art form. And I've really tried to wrap my brain around this because this is all I do. I just think all day about why I do this. And I cannot think, film, you can watch films again. Art, you can see paintings, you can see, music. You can all re-listen to these things and get close to the exact intended experience. But you can never ride Journey into Imagination again. I mean, you just can't. And these other, Disney attractions, any attractions really, it's the one art form that you can never relive. So I do my best to try to give a retrospective of its history. I talk about the ride through and what it looked like. And then we are trying to recreate a few of these rides in virtual reality to try to get as close as possible that art that has been lost.
Yeah, it's like live theater, it's a fragile state, and it's here for a while, and if you get to enjoy it while it's here, you're a very lucky person, and the thing that makes it so precious is the fact that it is so temporary.
Right, and I mean, original cast Broadway is one of the only, comparable things. You can redo a musical, or you can redo a play, but, the original cast, how it was originally intended, that's about as close as you can get, but even theme parks, you can't get close to those rides. And since this is a Disney podcast, if anybody does end up going to check out my stuff on youtube.com/defunctland, there's a lot of non-Disney stuff on there, but I urge you to not deny or not ignore it, because every episode, besides maybe one or two of the over 30 or so that I've done, has some Disney element in it. It's so interesting because Disney inspires everybody.
Yes. And yeah, it's a great, I watch all of the YouTube videos, and I'd never heard of Action Park, to be honest. And that was such an interesting episode to learn about. And yeah, this industry is inspired by Disney. So
yeah, everything.
It's great. And everything, is defunctland.com a place they can go to get everything, or?
We are actually, me and a few other theme park YouTubers are starting a new website, so that is to be released soon. But right now, if you want to get pretty much everything, go to youtube.com/defunctland. And from there, you can find all of my social media stuff. But yeah, this is I'm trying to think of an example. Oh, a good one is the episode on disaster transport. I don't know if you've seen that episode. Which was at Cedar Point in Ohio, and it was a Space Mountain ripoff. So you wouldn't think this is just a random episode, but nope, it's straight from Disney. They're trying to make their own Space Mountain on a 20th of the budget. So
Yeah. So today on the show, I have you on because we're going to be talking about some extinct attractions that came from Disney's Animal Kingdom, because coming up on April 22nd, it is the 20th anniversary of Disney's Animal Kingdom. And there have been, some attractions that haven't lasted, some that have gone away completely, some that have just changed slightly. So we're going to jump into that conversation right now.
It's time to dive into today's Disney dialogue.
Okay, I think the first one that really pops to my mind is the Discovery Riverboats. And this was an opening day attraction that went through a lot of changes and then eventually just went away.
The Discovery Riverboats is a really interesting story. I'm not sure how it originated, what the original idea was. Because it's such a small attraction, they weren't expecting much. I'm assuming it was crowd control. It was originally a transportation method, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you have this idea that, okay, you're just going to get in the boats, but then it turned into some sort of round trip where you just go in a circle and come back to the dock that you were let off on. And during cast member previews, before Animal Kingdom opened in 1998, they realized that, oh no, the Discovery Riverboats have an hour-long wait during cast previews. And that was not when the park opened. So the park opens and everyone flocks to Discovery Riverboats, and it's even longer than an hour wait for this boat ride. And before we get into what the boat ride really was,
wasn't.
or wasn't, I mean, it's clear why they thought they were going to this, right?
Yeah.
So they thought it was going to be the Jungle Cruise.
They thought it was going to be, an actual ride as opposed to a means of transportation. And essentially it was some transpo from Asia to the Safari Village, which is now Discovery Island. And there just wasn't much, even I experienced this in the first year. I went to Disney's Animal Kingdom in 98, and I remember riding this. And I do remember being like, well, what is there to see? There's really not much. I remember a cave that breathed fire, and it was one of the very small things that actually referred to dragons being a part of Disney's Animal Kingdom, since, Beastly Kingdom never happened. So I remember very small things, but I do remember getting off and being like, well, that was kind of a waste of time.
Yeah, so when it originally opened, people, just the exterior just seemed to Disney fans and to people that were especially there in the opening year as, oh, this is the Jungle Cruise of Animal Kingdom. Yeah. Because the boats looked very, Jungle Cruise-esque, except for they were huge. And they still did not get to the capacity they wanted. So once you got on, and this is just the first iteration we're discussing right now, is that you would get on and they'd take you to the next stop, and there was really not that much. And the skipper introduced himself as a skipper, and everyone's like, oh, yay, it's a skipper. And then he doesn't say anything funny, and he's just kind of like, there's a thing, and there's a thing. All right. And then you just go through the water. So
yeah, one thing that this actually did have in common with the Jungle Cruise is how loud it is.
Oh my gosh.
Because the Jungle Cruise, one of the things, I always try to really avoid sitting toward the back of the boat where the motor is, because it's an extremely loud motor on the Jungle Cruise. And this was no different. The Discovery Riverboats were so loud when you were riding them.
It makes POVs, if you want to go experience this through a camcorder, it is impossible to listen to it, because you'll hear the skipper. And the first time, I went back and I was like, okay, what exactly does the skipper say in this? And I was like, I can't hear him. Maybe he's saying something hilarious. And then I found out what he was saying, and it wasn't. But point being, it is really, really loud. Yeah,
it's a very, very loud attraction. And as there were little things. They did have an animatronic iguanodon as part of it, which I don't particularly remember. I don't know if that got removed at some point or what.
Okay, so the Iguanodon, if I'm saying that correctly, I'm bad. I remember one episode of Defunctland, I believe it was Back to the Future, the ride, I said Cretaceous period or Crustaceous period.
I was going to say Cretaceous is correct, I think.
Well then one of them was, so I said Crustaceous, or, oh yeah, because that's like a crab, or something. I don't know.
A crustacean is
Yeah, sure. See, I'm not great with animals. That's why I'm doing my best right now. But I'm bad with dinosaurs, but the Iguanodon, I guess. Sure.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Because like an iguana?
I mean, I know it as an iguanodon. I believe I'm saying it correctly.
Well, okay, great. So the Iguanodon, I believe, was actually added after the fact. So I think it opened and then Iguanodon came and then it was removed. And it was removed, I think it was November of 98, maybe? I mean, it was very quickly
I was going to say that's a quick removal because
it wasn't open for that long. And then it ended up, was it in the Hollywood Studios graveyard?
I think it might have been on the backlot tour. I think you might be right, or the Walt Disney Studios Park, perhaps.
Maybe one of yeah. Oh yes, that might have been it. Yeah,
I think it was that.
It was one of the graveyard kind of shows.
Yeah.
So but that was the evidence to all this is very bad because it happened so fast. Mm-hmm. And this was not like everyone flocked to this attraction, even though they did. The people writing stuff down and the people keeping the history of these attractions definitely didn't get too much on the Discovery Riverboats. They were only open for less than 2 years. 2 years.
So it started as the Discovery Riverboat ride, and then the Discovery River Taxi, and then I think the funniest was the Radio Disney River Cruise.
Yeah, so when it was the Discovery Water River Taxi, I believe, is that when it stopped doing the transportation and then it just did round trips? Or maybe that was Radio Disney. At one point, they made this change. Oh, excuse me, let me back up. The Discovery Water Boat was the change of water taxis.
Yeah, the river taxi, yeah.
The river taxis, my words are all jumbled. The Discovery River taxis they would have an additional cast member because people were furious when they rode this thing because you can imagine you're standing out in the hot sun waiting over an hour for this boat ride and it turns out to just be a boat ride along the river that you could have walked. You're going to be furious because there's nothing. So they're like, okay, what do? Let's put another cast member on the boat with a few animals, and let's just have them go up and down the aisle and just kind of show them to people. And that's what they did.
Yeah, that was very clearly like a haphazard attempt to make it interesting. And it was like, they're like, oh, it's a scorpion. And they just like had a scorpion in one of those little plastic aquariums that you get at a pet store. Like, it was pretty lame. And yeah, that attraction struggled. It eventually closed in 1999. So, I mean, the park opened in 98. It had a life for a little bit over a year, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, in March of 1999, I believe that's when they started doing the Radio Disney. They're like, last ditch attempt, let's try this out. This is all we got. The Radio Disney River Cruise in March of 1999. And then they had Radio Disney hosts and they played like rock songs and it was so bizarre. And I think they took it out of the map to the park.
Oh, really?
And so I've looked at a lot of the opening year maps and trying to find the Discovery Riverboats, and a lot of times it's not on there. That could either be because there was 2 distinct periods that it was down going under a quote-unquote refurbishment, which is just adding animals and or adding Radio Disney. Or it was because they're like, let's just pretend like this thing doesn't exist and it will just be, hey, oh, look at the boats. Let's just look at them and not ride them because we will get angry if we do. But a lot of things that made people angry is when they would stand on the dock and when it was a round trip, they would stand in Asia and the one coming from Safari Village, correct? It would pass them. So they've been waiting for like an hour and they're like, there's our boat. And the Safari Village one that just goes on by. But the main thing that Discovery Riverboats are known for today is, of course, the Beastly Kingdom tributes. The Beastly Kingdom, the idea that, like you said earlier, the dragon that breathed fire. And it was a preview because they thought, oh, we're going to still do this, right?
Yeah, there was certainly no dragon. It was literally a cave that just had flame balls shooting out of it.
Yeah, they had dragon noises, but that was about it. And this was the idea that you have to the right of the park you have dinosaurs, and in midst of the park you have the animals, and then to the left of the park you have Beastly Kingdom, where it is a mythical creatures, and this was supposed to have 2 different distinct lands. I mean, you can really go online and look at this was gonna happen, right? And they were going to do this, and then they ran over budget with Animal Kingdom, and Michael Eisner was given the option: do we do Dinoland USA or do we do Beastly Kingdom? And he said, let's do Dinoland. I don't know why exactly. I do. It's the dinosaur movie.
Yeah, it's because the film was coming out, yeah.
I also have some thoughts that it was for other reasons, that the dinosaur movie was for other reasons, because if you think about what's happening in the early 90s when Animal Kingdom's really starting to become developed, is that you also have Jurassic Park the Ride opening in Universal Studios Hollywood. And so
that was 96. Yeah, 1996 that opened.
That had opened, right, in Hollywood. And then it came a few years later into Islands of Adventure. And so in that midst, this is complete speculation, Eisner could have easily been like, okay, they're coming to Florida with Jurassic Park, and it's going to be a huge draw. What can we do? Let's make this movie. Let's do Dinosaur Land. So by the time they're like, hey, should we do the dinosaur thing or Beastly Kingdom? He was like, Dinosaur all the way.
Yeah.
So...
Now, you mentioned Michael Eisner, whom I have to stop because having seen your work, I know that you have very strong opinions of Michael Eisner, and I think we have very differing opinions. I'm a big fan, and you are not so much.
As a person, I've heard he's very nice. I've heard he's a very nice guy, and I believe it. I will give him that. I've also heard that. I also know that he created one of my favorite TV shows, which is BoJack Horseman. He was an executive producer of that TV show. Now he spends most of his time doing some sort of soccer club thing that I don't know about. But I could even say I love the best CEO of the Disney Company. You hear this is the first time I've ever said this, was Michael Eisner from 1984 to 1992. The worst CEO of the Disney Company was Michael Eisner from 1992 to 2005.
Okay. I think that's fair. It cracks me up because you try to get a Michael Eisner dig into every episode pretty much as often as I try to get Honey, I Shrunk the Kids into my episodes, which I just successfully did in today's episode now.
Boom, there you go. Yeah.
But it always makes me laugh whenever you cut to a still of Michael or whatever, and I'm just like, give the guy a break. He created amazing things for this company.
He really did, but he also has the best super villain origin story in the history of anyone, I think. I mean, just this idea that you can't write a better villain than Michael Eisner, because you have this guy for 8 years that is just creating the most amazing things you've ever seen. I mean, he's greenlit what's going to become the most amazing films Disney's ever created, the Disney Renaissance. He's created some of the most amazing theme parks with Disneyland Paris, or Euro Disneyland at the time, and he's created and he's reinvigorated a lot of Epcot, and just he's done a lot of great things.
He was involved with Cruise Line. He was involved with putting Disney on Broadway. He put tons of hotels in Orlando.
Right. And especially with and all of these things were just like, are you sure you want to do this? Tomorrowland 1994, best Tomorrowland in my opinion anywhere. And Magic Kingdom. It's just and so this is just he's amazing. This guy is saving us all, and he's micromanaging, and he has his hands on, and he's creating a brand, and it's incredible. And then Euro Disneyland fails, and then this man who created, this was the most ambitious park that Disney had ever created. It was the most amazing, beautiful, creative, he put heart and soul. Tony Baxter and all the Imagineers did an incredible job, and he greenlit so much. You talked to Terry Hardin as well on your podcast, and I don't know if she mentioned this, but her Dragon's Lair at Disneyland Paris is just a fantastic feature that, he greenlit, and it's just all of this amazing things. And for that to fail, what an amazing supervillain! And on a dime, he's like, we have to now, we're cutting everything. We're done. No more creativity. We gotta figure out what the easiest way to put things in this park are.
Listen, what I'll say to that is, though, at least he was creating a brand and not just buying a brand.
I'm not defending anyone. I'm not defending the current administration. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just saying that what a wonderful supervillain origin story. And then he turned back. It's like you as a CEO. I guess it's the Batman line of you either spend a tenure long enough to see yourself become a villain. So. You either die, you either get fired a hero, or spend your tenure long enough to become a villain. But I don't know. All the rides he closed down, everything that didn't happen because of 1992's failure of Euro Disneyland. His mathematics team was the worst in the entire world. That I'm learning as I research more and more, and that their projections for things were the craziest thing ever. I'm researching right now for an episode on Disney Quest. A potential
that'll be an interesting episode.
Yeah, if that ever gets done, it's like a 10-page script. It might be a movie. It might be a movie. His mathematics team, hilariously, they thought this is what we're going to be able to bring in. And the Chicago Tribune in Chicago, when they opened the one in Chicago, was just like, they would have to stay open 17 hours a day, every day, and manage full capacity for all 17 hours to even come close to these projections.
Wow. Very interesting.
Yeah, so not to get too long on a tangent on Michael Eisner, but as a person,
listen, I asked for it, so it's all good.
Yeah, you that's my trigger word. But I applaud him because I do think the brand was at its strongest in the early 90s. But
absolutely, like, yeah. He's literally my number one like interview request of anybody.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And there have been a lot of people, great people I've interviewed on this show, and a lot of great people I want to interview. But of the people I haven't that I want to, he's like my number one. I would be fascinated to just sit and chat with him. And not only would it be informative, I just think it would be a lot of fun. I really loved his, Wonderful World of Disney intros. I was like, I get it. You seem like a friend to me. I like you. And he was
and I mean, he wasn't. Another thing is he wasn't this arrogant, billionaire guy. He was really self-conscious in a lot of ways from what I hear on the Wonderful World of Disney, especially. He was very like, I'm not a good actor. You're going to need to do this and like help me out. And so he seems like a really sweet guy. And, but man, the moves he made after Euro Disneyland failed, not just after it failed, after it was gonna fail, like for a while, it's just, I didn't even mention Disney's America, so we better move on before I get started.
I know. So back to Disney's Animal Kingdom. Sorry, I just had to. When you mentioned his name, we had to go there for a second.
Yes, I know. There's the rabbit hole.
But I do want to mention. So that was the Discovery Riverboats. I do want to mention the Kilimanjaro Safari, which of course is not an extinct attraction at this point, but it is a very different attraction from when it opened, and I do remember this opening day or opening year attraction where there was much more of a storyline to it, and it kind of felt more Disney in my opinion.
Okay, yeah, and I'm not that familiar with the original Kilimanjaro Safari. I notoriously don't love animals.
Oh wow. Okay.
No, I love them like as animals, but I don't like zoos that much, and that's why Animal Kingdom is always lost to me. I just don't like observing them in their artificial habitats. And while Disney's is large and expansive, and props to them for making sure that they did a good job with that. I don't know. I've never been a huge zoo guy, so I've not gone through each iteration. So I'm interested to hear what the changes are.
Well, so at the beginning, the Imagineers really did feel like in order for this to be a Disney attraction, yes, we want this to feel like a natural safari in Africa, but they added this storyline of poachers, and they had somebody talking in over the radio. His name was Wilson, and he would break in. The driver would be narrating this whole tour for you, and this character of Wilson would come over the radio and say, hey, please keep your eye out for these poachers and stuff like that. And before the park even opened, when they were still doing those cast member previews, they actually had a fake giant dead elephant named Big Red. And people were so disturbed by this that they ended up removing this dead elephant before the park opened. And they kept this chase of the poachers, and we can see like the poachers' tents set up and everything, and we hear about how Big Red has been killed, and then eventually we come across Little Red, who's safe in a truck, and it's an animatronic, of course, and there were these geysers involved and stuff. It was just much more of this was like probably like the last few minutes or several minutes of the attraction. The beginning was still very much the safari with the character of Wilson breaking in every once in a while, but they definitely had much more of a story to it, which felt more Disney to me.
Yeah, and that's and again, this park especially had a lot more of those what do we do, because we're not going to be building dark rides. And so those kind of small touches, which worked a lot better, it sounds like, in Kilimanjaro Safari than it did in Discovery Riverboats, which they tried to do some small touches. It's hit and miss, but yeah, it's definitely not different than it is today, with there's a lot less.
Yeah, the thing that impresses me most about this park in general is just it's so funny because like these days, it's no question that the competition between theme parks is bigger and grander than ever, and they are coming out with stuff just to try and beat each other that simply we as the consumers are benefiting tremendously because they are just trying to top one another. But Universal can create incredible rides and compete with Disney in that aspect these days, I feel. But the one thing that that Disney does that these other parks don't do are these like massive feats. I can't imagine anybody else creating a Disney's Animal Kingdom or just a Walt Disney World resort in general. Like, the logistics behind these things are much more than, okay, how many people can we get through this line? It's the logistics of, okay, we need to take care of these animals 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's in the massive size of these parks. And it's really crazy to me when I think of logistically how Disney's Animal Kingdom even operates. It's incredible.
And along those lines, they turn the lights off at night. From what I understand, to make sure the animals can sleep. So they, most Disney parks and Walt Disney World are lit up at night. So the castle still has somewhat of like a lighting on it. So it's not just sitting there in the dark. Mm-hmm. I was lost in the Walt Disney World Resort one night, driving around because I was trying to get out, and I was meeting someone at a resort I'd never been to in there. And I end up just coming straight towards Disney's Animal Kingdom front gates, and I'm like, oh no, because you can't just like do a U-E. You have to go through, and of course no one's there, so you can go right through without paying. So I'm going through, and I get through there, and then I'm turning, and I see Disney's Animal Kingdom, and it looks like it's abandoned. I don't know if you've ever been there, like when it's after hours.
I have not, no. It's interesting.
It is so dead. And there's not, so I texted, of course, Disney Dan, who is my Disney aficionado friend. And I was like, why is Animal Kingdom so dead at night? And he's like, well, it's because the animals need to sleep, so they can't have the projections on all the buildings like in the Magic Kingdom. I'm like, okay, that makes sense, but it is horrifying because, the night sky isn't black, so you can see Everest, but you can only see it as a giant silhouette, and I'm still scared. I'm scared thinking about it right now, so we can move on if you want to, but it's just horrifying.
I think you've just inspired a new nighttime tour for me. I want to go through there with a dim flashlight now.
Oh my gosh.
Walk around that.
No way, man.
Absolutely.
No way.
That'd be
oh. I get so freaked out. Yeah, no, I love talking about abandoned places, but seeing them in person, I'm like, I can't do it.
Really? Oh, man, that really, it entices me tremendously. I love seeing all the abandoned places.
Yeah, no, no. I've only been to Animal Kingdom, again, a few times. Uh-huh. The Expedition Everest is one of my favorite rides, and I'm horrified of it now. Just because I've seen it at night, and if there's no lights on, that means that Yeti animatronic is just in the dark. Mm-hmm. Like, imagine doing a tour and just shining the flashlight, and we need to move on. I can't talk about this anymore. I can't do it.
Don't you have a Space Mountain fear as well?
Oh my gosh! Don't even give me. Yeah, okay. It's me. I am horrified of Space Mountain. Space Mountain is the scariest ride in existence. And when Disney Dan and I went to Walt Disney World together, and we went to Magic Kingdom, we got on the People Mover, and the lights were on in Space Mountain, mm-hmm. and I was so happy because the Space Mountain with the lights on is still scary, but the People Mover is a lot less scary because People Mover is also terrifying because of Space Mountain. Space Mountain's horrifying, and I was like, look at those, and Dan was just like, yeah, that metal is close. You're right. I can see why you're scared. I don't know if you've ever ridden the People Mover with the lights on or not.
That's so funny.
But it's a horrifying. I'm a scaredy cat. I'm fine to admit it. I'm also terrified. That's
why you enjoy the Extinct thing, is because you can talk about it, but you never have that necessity to actually ride it.
I can talk about the scare. I can talk about extraterrestrial and be like, yeah, it was really scary. No big deal. And if anyone was like, you need to experience it yourself, I'd be like, not again.
Too bad I can't.
I can't go back. I can't do it again. Oh, but I will say that one of the attractions that just became extinct at the Animal Kingdom also horrified me. And I know you look confused right now because it doesn't make sense. But the Flight of Wonder in Asia. I'm horrified of birds as well. So
I think you just need to stay indoors.
I do. I do stay indoors, but it's scary.
All right.
Because the birds would fly around, and birds have beaks, and they're scary things.
Well, they're modern day dinosaurs, so
Yeah. I'm also terrified of dinosaurs just because I can't pronounce them correctly, apparently. But the Flights of Wonder in Animal Kingdom There's a segue. Is that
that was their opening day, I believe,
yes,
right?
it was. It was one of the only Asia attractions because Cali River Rapids that
hadn't opened. No.
That had not opened, but that's in Asia as well. And then another one, which I'm blanking on.
Isn't Everest in Asia?
Well, Everest is in Asia, but there was another one that they weren't done yet with.
Oh, I'm blanking.
Same. I'd have to go back and look. Anyway, so yeah, what is it called?
Flights of Wonder.
Not Flight of Passage.
Flight of Passage is
soaring over Pandora, but the Flight of Wonder was just the stage show where they just had birds and they would fly and do tricks. It was like any stage show anywhere else, but.
Yeah, and pretty soon they'll be opening the new version of that. It's called Up, A Great Bird Adventure. So they're working in some of the characters from Up. And it's going to be a very similar show. So you'll have something new to fear at that point.
I'm also afraid of heights. So Up is another thing that's terrifying to me. So just the idea.
Yeah. Speaking of shows, though, they did have a show on opening day called Journey into the Jungle Book. Oh, no. Okay, what are your thoughts on this show?
Well, as an extinct attraction, I love it. As something that... I'm sorry. This show is so bad. I don't know. Have you ever experienced it yourself? I
did live because I was there that first year. Yeah.
Yeah, well... then you'll know how bad it was as far as costuming.
It was silly. The one thing I remember is the Shere Khan puppet. I remember thinking was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was cool. They had the not life size, larger than life tiger, and then
in pieces. It was cut up in an interesting way and puppeteered pretty cool. But yeah, Baloo had a very interesting costume, and King Louie had a very interesting costume.
There were no faces.
Yeah.
It
was the actor's face. Yeah.
Right. It was they were just like blank. You can't perceive what that is. But it was the actor's face with some animal noses, and it was horrifying. I know that. Let's see. I'm trying to think. There was some other things about this. There was a trampoline on stage, which was just kind of used all the time. Mm-hmm. They just bounce whenever they were talking. This didn't stay open for long. Oh, another thing was there actually something I did like about the show is they had a kind of a cool, I couldn't tell how they did it. If maybe it was just Baloo would go hit the tree and a coconut, I believe, would fall. Yeah. And then a banana thing fell. I don't know if there was a stage hand behind there, just every time it hit the tree would drop it. Mm-hmm. But I thought that was kind of cool that every time he would hit the tree and then a coconut would fall and he passed it to Mowgli and he'd get one for himself. So
I really liked the two-legged elephants. I thought that those costumes were kind of cool.
They were kind of cool. You could never really tell when they were facing the right direction until at first you think, oh, these are weird costumes, and then they turn around and it's actually very detailed and nice.
Yeah, the only big flaw is the fact that each of the elephants have 2 legs instead of 4, but it worked. I kind of felt like I did appreciate the fact that it was live vocals. It wasn't pre-recorded.
You appreciated that?
Yeah, I always appreciate when the vocals are live, even if they're not the greatest, because I just appreciate live performance. Okay, yeah. They weren't the greatest from what I saw. And again, it's different for every show, which is what's great about live performance. Mm-hmm. They weren't bad by any means. It's just, especially, and we're going to talk about another stage show that comes after this that works a lot differently, but especially with the cartoon, to me, princess voices are very not easy, but there's a lot easier replication in them. Mm-hmm. And very character voices such as Baloo it's very hard to replicate. So you hear someone singing and it sounds a lot different than Baloo, especially King Louie, who sounds like Christopher Walken. So props to Jon Favreau for getting him for that movie. But it's a very distinct voice for both of those. And so when you see live performances who aren't doing an impression, it's a totally different song. It can definitely be jarring. It's really funny, just fast forwarding a little bit here, the Finding Nemo musical that is in that space now, the original cast, or at least the cast album that they put out, the woman who played Dory sounded so much like Ellen DeGeneres, it was creepy. it was a really, really good voice match. And, you know, that it's actors making characters of their own. It's always a weird fine line. The weird thing about the Jungle Book show is that it kind of mixed the two. So I kind of feel like you have to decide what you're doing. Are you going to do something where you're trying to make this sound like the animated version? Or are you going to do something where this is a different piece that's being created here? And with the Jungle Book, they kind of did both. Because as you mentioned, Baloo and King Louie were live vocalists who were not doing impressions. But then you had, like, the tiger, who was a pre-recorded voice and just a puppet, I believe, that kind of did sound like the film version. So it's when you mix the two that I think you have a problem.
Well, yeah, and this stage show seemed kind of doomed from the start. A lot of the stage shows when Animal Kingdom opened were like, what do we do? That we are props to everybody who works at Disney or at any park really in entertainment, like just that aspect. I don't know what is the official title for it. It's stage entertainment is what I mean. Entertainment and shows. Mm-hmm. They are some of the scrappiest. Because all the problems are thrown on them. Crowd control problems thrown on them. Under budget thrown on them. And they always, even the Jungle Book, the show that we're talking about, wasn't bad. It just wasn't amazing, and it definitely wasn't there to stay. But props to them because they have to carry the weight. I mean, they're the underdog of the theme park industry, in my opinion. So
yeah, live shows are cheaper than rides, is what it really comes down to. So whenever they have an empty space and they're like, oh goodness, we need to do something with this for a temporary amount of time, great, put in a live show there. And if we're lucky, we get a really good live show, and a lot of times we do. And then sometimes we get shows that are, you know, obviously a budget show. And I actually don't think Journey into the Jungle Book was as guilty as this as the Pocahontas show, which we'll talk about at some point. But really? I know you wanted to talk about this Journey into the Jungle Book closed in April of '99 and it was replaced by Tarzan Rocks.
Tarzan Rocks,
which I also saw live. I remember seeing that one.
There were a lot more songs in Tarzan than I remembered when watching the show.
Yeah, Phil Collins wrote a nice little score. See, they're not as memorable because for the most part the characters don't sing them. It's all background music in the film.
Exactly. And I don't know how Phil Collins ended up doing the Tarzan soundtrack.
I don't know how that came about either, to be honest.
But thank God he did, because it's great. I love the Tarzan soundtrack. But it's so bizarre. And so this stage show, if you're listening and haven't seen it, I guess, is that the idea is it's a rock concert, but at the same time there's all of these costumed acrobats kind of just doing the show around you with a appearance from, what is the name of the gorilla, the female gorilla
Turk.
played by Turk, Rosie O'Donnell's character, right? That is who plays it?
Yep.
Her. And yeah, but that is a costume, and it stands out. It's the only costumed character. Now, Tarzan's there, and he's wearing a weird wig. And then Jane, but they're not big costumed characters. They're, live actors who are also acrobats. So, what did you think?
Rollerblading, wasn't there, if I remember?
Yes.
Yeah. Rollerblading and ramps and stuff like that were part of the show. And at this point, the theater was still like an open air space. It had a roof, but there were no walls to the theater for Jungle Book or for Tarzan Rocks. And then when they put in the more permanent Finding Nemo the musical, they actually enclosed the space. It became like a legitimate theater and a really good piece of theater in there right now, I believe.
Yeah, the Tarzan Rocks, I will give it credit that it was really fun. And it was mainly held up by the music. Played by a variety of actors over the 7 years probably that it was open. But the main Phil Collins guy just really didn't feel right, because there was all of these elaborately cheesy costumed acrobats, and then there was just a rock band placed stage left or stage right, I can't remember.
Okay.
And they were unthemed. I mean, they didn't even try. I mean, they were just the rock band, right? And then they would like jot out to the front of the stage and be like, "Are you ready to rock?" And everyone would be like, "Yeah." And they'd be like, "Are you ready to rock?" And it was just, what? And then they would walk backwards and play the guitar and sing Phil Collins as all these acrobats started going about and doing crazy movements. the couple things about this show that I especially wanted to bring up is they had a really interesting and creative way of hiding the cloth that was going to catch Tarzan and Jane. And I believe this was a dual-purpose cloth. Do you remember this at all?
I don't remember this at all, so I'm curious to hear what you're talking about.
The first time you see Tarzan, which is like 10 minutes into the 25-minute show, he comes really late. And it's really funny because the show that I saw, it was not a huge audience reaction to him. Because they're like, oh, it's Tarzan. And then he just kind of stood for like a long time, and I'm like, oh, we built up to this moment.
Yeah.
It's 10 minutes in and we haven't seen Tarzan yet. So it just looks like some guy that kind of looked like Tarzan took his shirt off and just wandered out onto stage. Anyway, so there's a point where Tarzan and Jane, probably 15 to 20 minutes in, come, and the two of them are going to do this big acrobatic swinging performance. And it is really cool. Both of the ones I saw were very, fantastic acrobats, as I'm sure everyone is, to even have to work on this, to even get to. But what they did is this thing would drop, and it would have some ribbons, and these ribbons was what they wrapped their hands around and grabbed onto in different ways. Now, the interesting thing is they set up something before this. So the two of them aren't on the ribbons yet, and they're just kind of dancing around, and there's all of these cast members, like literal cast members, that are just kind of dancing, and they have this cloth, and they're making it move, and then they do a few up and down motions with it to kind of hide them and then show them. And anyways, so it's established that this cloth is part of the set, and it's just part of them having a dancing fun time. And yes, the Phil Collins band is also rocking out over there unthemed. But then the ribbons come down, Tarzan wraps his hands around and does a swinging motion. Then he comes down, and then he grabs Jane, who is not wrapped into anything at all.
Uh-oh.
So if he lets go of her, there's no ribbons to catch her. I imagine what happens if he releases his grip on the ribbons, that there would be enough wraparound to kind of catch him so he could re-get his grip.
Yeah.
With her, she's free. She's not attached to any harness or anything. So that cloth that they were doing earlier, you'll notice that they start doing this kind of tribal circle dance, and they're using the cloth and they're doing a parachute in the middle. And I imagine that what would happen is if Jane were to drop, they would stop, go back, and that becomes the landing pad for her.
Oh my goodness.
So that I found that very interesting, that there happened to be this giant cloth prop during the part that Jane was most likely to drop.
Yeah, that's kind of terrifying if you're the actress who played Jane. I don't know if OSHA would be okay with that these days. That's pretty crazy.
I don't know either. I know there was a big accident, I think in 2005 or 2006. Not a big accident, just someone reported it on one of the message boards that essentially during one of the Tarzan swinging, he had too much slack, and so he didn't fall, but he hit the ground hard. And then a voice came over and said, due to unforeseen circumstances, we're going to have to cancel this performance of Tarzan Rocks. And then they move on.
Nice.
So which is just oh, okay. So that was interesting to think that could even happen. But of course, these acrobats, there were no harnesses. This was a real acrobatic performances. Another thing...
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I remember you mentioned how Tarzan's wig. You said he came out with a weird wig. I'm pretty sure that wig was probably a helmet disguised to look like hair. Is my guess. That's probably why it looked weird. Maybe that it was just it had a very thin helmet just in case. So whenever something went horribly wrong, they're like, well, we gave you a helmet. I don't know what else you want. Yeah, right. Exactly. Another thing in this was. So, like I said, Turk just looks completely out of place because it's a walk-around character costume. It's the mixed medium again. Once again, whenever they do this, you have to do one or the other, I feel like. You're either going to have mascot characters or you're going to have live performers, live vocals and such. And it's when you mix the two that it gets weird. And once again, what you're saying just confirms that, in my opinion. Yeah, and the interesting thing about the Turk walk-around costume is it had a microphone on it. It had it had a fake headphone, with the strap to put the little fuzzy microphone in front of the mouth, like you'll see any singer doing Madonna, at a concert. Yeah, like Madonna. And I was just like, what a weird creative decision to have that. I mean, it didn't take me out of it. The entire Turk costume took me. No, the Phil Collins band that's still jamming out in the back took me out of it. Which I think the Phil Collins band should just be in
like that knockoff Phil Collins singer should be at every one of these stage shows and just singing about whatever in the jungle. But
I just love that you call him the Phil Collins band. That's fantastic.
I mean, they're supposed to be. The guy kind of sounds a little like Phil Collins. Not really. You can never get the Phil. But then another thing was there was two more things. If you don't mind me going off on Tarzan Rocks.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm really passionate about this weird thing. I was watching a POV of it to refresh my memory today, and what I noticed is in a lot of the pictures and POVs, there's these. I don't want to say monkeys because I don't want them to not be monkeys. Anyway, it was one of the acrobatic costumed actors. There was like 6 or 5 of them, and they were wearing jungle spandex that kind of looked like monkeys, kind of looked like a Tarzan suit. Excuse me. So what's interesting, if they would see someone in the audience with a camera, they would go up to the camera and look in it and kind of point and be like you can imagine them saying, like, what is that? What is that? And be like, hey. And so in this POV, what this actor did is he looked in the camera and then he motioned for another one of the walk around people to come, and they both looked in the camera and they both started making faces. And it was just so funny that they did that during the shows. Whenever they saw a camera, they would pretend like they'd never seen a camera before and motion their friends over, and their friends would come over and like make weird faces. So, and then another thing, which I know this is the Disney Coast to Coast podcast, but can I talk about Universal? Is that like a dirty word? I don't know.
No. I'm a huge fan of Universal.
Okay. So have you ever heard of Spider-Man Rocks?
Yes, I've seen Spider-Man Rocks live. That was trash. That was...
Man...
That was Universal Studios Hollywood, and I think it ran a very short period of time, and it's funny because I was not living out here at the time, but I just happened to be on vacation and catch Spider-Man Rocks. Yes, that was trash.
It was so bad, and there was... Oh, I don't even know how to put this. There was you know what I'm talking about. There was a horrible scene in it where Mary Jane is getting stalked, and it is set to a heartful ballad of She Bangs by Ricky Martin.
Ricky Martin, yes.
So, and it is uncomfortable because the guy singing it is dressed as a cartoonish, like, I'll say crook, and the two of them surround her while singing this rock ballad, and then Spider-Man swoops in. But oh my gosh, the criticism that received for that specific scene. Oh my gosh. So I just want to bring that up because I was thinking, what came first, Spider-Man Rocks or Tarzan Rocks? And it was Tarzan Rocks. So
okay. I have an episode request from you. Can you please do a Defunctland about Creature from the Black Lagoon, the musical? Because, oh my God. This is Universal Studios, folks. Universal Hollywood invested a bunch of money into this, and holy crud, was it just terrible.
There's it's again with stage shows. Universal Hollywood is another beast in itself.
They had a Flintstones stage show that was fantastic, though. They had a Flintstones musical stage show like right when the live action film came out. Fantastic, like
called Flintstone Rocks, and there was a Phil Collins band in the back.
No, it was just the Flintstones, and it was a really great like original musical. I loved it. But in any case,
I can't say that for Spider-Man Rocks, unfortunately.
Anyway, back to Disney's Animal Kingdom. Let's go to Camp Minnie-Mickey for a little bit, because this was an entire land that was, as you mentioned, Beastly Kingdom was supposed to be on this land, and that was not going to happen because of budget reasons, and so they had to build something quick. And Camp Minnie-Mickey was quick and cheap and lasted 16 years.
Yeah, I mean... This is why Michael Eisner's great. Like you said, he was awesome. So the fact that this existed for 16 years is crazy. But it served a fine enough purpose.
Yeah.
It's so weird how unbalanced Animal Kingdom is, in that all the attractions that people want to go on are in Asia. At least before Pandora opened. So you have both the Cali River Rapids and Expedition Everest, which are your 2 e-tickets in there, and you can consider Dinosaur. That'd be an e-ticket?
Yeah, that was, I think, the only e-ticket on opening day was Dinosaur. Yeah.
And so, but as far as the marketing material goes, they really don't market Dinosaur that well anymore.
Yeah, I would agree, and it's a. I mean, there's the rumor swirling that it's going to go away, and I hope it doesn't. I love that attraction. Hey, you'll have to do an episode about it when it goes away.
Heck yeah. So as far as Camp Minnie-Mickey goes, but it's weird because when you think of the Magic Kingdom parks throughout the world, you usually see the most attraction density in Fantasyland, which is to your northeast, right? So northeast, and that's where Asia is. So it's just, that corner of the park right there's where we're going to put all of our money. Yeah. So as far as Beastly Kingdom goes, Beastly Kingdom would have been amazing, and I cry myself to sleep, if not because of Space Mountain scariness or birds or heights or whatever else I'm scared of. It's that Beastly Kingdom did not happen, and it was such an interesting idea. It's clear why they couldn't do it now because of Islands of Adventure. I'm sure you've heard that story as well. The Lost Continent opens, and Disney Imagineers worked on the Lost Continent, who were also there in Animal Kingdom. Yeah. And they basically took that idea and went to another park with it, which I don't know the ethics of doing that or how true that story is to begin with.
Well, I'm sorry, but if you really want to get into that, Michael Eisner started that little game when it comes to Catastrophe Canyon and Earthquake. So,
okay, yeah.
So he started stealing first, in my opinion.
Right. And yeah, but man, Beastly Kingdom I would highly recommend going to watch, if you're not going to watch all of my videos and you're going to save one for another channel, I would recommend Yesterworld's video on it. Mark and I are friends, and he did a great video on Beastly Kingdom. Yeah. And the Beastly Kingdom that just didn't happen, unfortunately, and then eventually became Pandora. But we can talk about some of the stuff that was in Camp Minnie-Mickey.
I mean, a lot of it was character meet and greets. To be honest, I thought it was kind of cute, the design of it, with the character statues all around the streams and stuff. Like, they were the characters like you were used to seeing in the Disney stores back in the day. But I remember just walking through it and thinking it was super sweet and endearing. And at that age, not thinking, I never felt like, to be fair, I never really went through as a full-grown adult because I was just I've got nothing I got to see there. But the first time I went, I definitely went through and never felt like, I feel like this was a last-minute thought. I never felt that way.
No, I mean, it feels natural. It feels like, if I want to go see Mickey at Disney's Animal Kingdom, I'll just go to Camp Minnie-Mickey. And it kind of continues the canon of the parks, if you will, with Mickey's Toontown in Disneyland, where his house is, right? That was where his house was. Yeah. And then his country house was in the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World. And then you also have Camp Minnie-Mickey. So if you want to consider it as an extension of this kind of in the parks, where does Mickey live canon, and that was his campground, I think that's very sweet. And again, the Imagineers are incredible people, and they're quick on their feet. So just because this was a last minute thing doesn't mean that it can't be perfect for the space. It's just unfortunate that these other great ideas had to go to the wayside for us to get Camp Minnie-Mickey. But I don't hate Camp Minnie-Mickey. I actually love it now that it's gone.
That's what it takes for you to fall in love with something. It needs to go away.
I'm a very simple person. Some people call me a hypocrite for it, but I'm not a hypocrite. I'm just simple. Is it here? I don't know anything about it. Is it gone? And I know everything.
That's so funny. They did have a show there originally called Colors of the Wind, Friends from the Animal Forest. And eventually the name of it was changed to Pocahontas and Her Forest Friends because people had no idea what the show was originally. I have spoken a bit about this show on a previous episode of Disney Coast to Coast where we did a Princess Pondering episode all about Pocahontas. But essentially this is a stage show with Pocahontas as your host, and there's a lot of live animals as part of it. And it's all about conservation and, saving the forests and such.
And if I'm remembering correctly, there was a Phil Collins band in the top right corner. No. Anyways. So, yeah, this Pocahontas this show, again, I just laugh when I think about Animal Kingdom and the original shows they had, because this wasn't a bad show. It was actually very sweet, a very nice show, especially because they took the first 4 rows and let kids sit there and it was like exclusively for kids. And the idea was Pocahontas was going to teach about conservation through this very sweet story with the trees she's talking to. And she'd go up to the kids and be like, I have a friend. Do you know what my friend's name is? And they'd be like, and I don't remember the raccoon's name. Miko. And then he'd be like, do you know what kind of animal Miko is? And it's like a raccoon. So it was like very nice. And for those kids, to a lot of, especially in the late 90s and early 2000s after Pocahontas, I mean, Pocahontas isn't nearly as big because, just times change. But back when that movie was still really fresh, man, what a wonderful experience for those kids to get to be so close to Pocahontas and get to see her with her nature friends.
Yeah, part of this, now, as we said, all of Camp Minnie-Mickey, and this was in Camp Minnie-Mickey, they had to do it on the cheap, and so they had a show at Disneyland called The Spirit of Pocahontas that had recently closed. So they ended up just taking a lot of the pieces from The Spirit of Pocahontas, as far as set pieces and stuff go, and moving it to Disney's Animal Kingdom for this show. So it was pretty smart on their part, considering...
Yeah, the reason I laughed, though, is when you said live animals, because the animals, I was thinking about, what animals we're going to have children sitting in the first 4 rows. What would be our top 3 animals to have for these children to see? They decided those top 3 animals were a live snake, a live porcupine, and a live raccoon.
Yeah, they did not allow food into this theater because of the fact that they had live animals.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine if that raccoon got loose? Yeah, but that was what I found most interesting about the show. Also, the puppetry was kind of interesting with that skinny tree, the tree sampling, or whatever that tree's name was. It's a very small tree. I don't know what they call him. Anyway, so the tree is just, his mouth moves and he's moving from side to side, and the big tree, it's fine. It was a good show. Short.
Yeah, and as far as a show that had some serious lasting power at Camp Minnie-Mickey is Festival of the Lion King, which reused props from the Lion King Celebration Parade at Disneyland. And I actually remember seeing this in its first year in '98 when it opened and saying to myself, those are the floats from Disneyland. Like, I literally had that thought. And, this is a show people love. I have never fallen in love with it the way that a lot of people have. I'm in the minority here. People love Festival of the Lion King. And originally it was a very open space theater. They did put roof on it at some point. And now it's so popular that even when Camp Minnie-Mickey has closed, they've now moved it to Africa into the Harambe Theater. So it's like in a proper theater now. Still runs. The show is pretty much the same as it's always been. And people love the Festival of the Lion King. Yeah,
which is very funny because do you know what's also going on at Magic Kingdom at this time?
No. What did they have that Lion King parade?
The Legend of the Lion King show.
Oh, yes, which was a great show.
Which was great.
Yeah, in the Mickey's PhilharMagic space. Yes.
Right. Yeah, it came after Magic Journeys, which came after the Mickey Mouse Revue, which was the opening day attraction. So it went Mickey Mouse Revue, Magic Journeys, and then in 1994, I believe, that was when Lion King came out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So this came out while the movie was still in theaters. The movie was in theaters for 2 weeks, and the show was playing 2 weeks in. People hadn't even seen the movie, and they were going to see The Legend of the Lion King, and everyone loved that show. So it makes sense that they loved the Festival of the Lion King. But
I mean, Lion King in general was a phenomenon.
Oh my gosh, it was so much bigger than. It was the biggest. And what do you think about how many phenomenons there was during the Disney Renaissance? I mean, the next year you had Toy Story
during the Eisner time. You mean?
Yeah. That was those were in his Netflix queue when he was a good guy. So like he was putting like, okay, we're gonna have all these movies, and then all of a sudden he's like, Treasure Planet, and then which whatever.
Agreed.
Meet the Robinsons wasn't under him, was it?
Oh, goodness.
It might have been Greenlight under him. What about Chicken Little with Zach Braff? I'm digressing. Yeah. But yeah, the Lion King Lion King's a hit. But one thing about the Pocahontas show, sorry, not to backtrack, I forgot to mention this.
That's
fine. Because I'm trying to think. I had another a couple things. The leaves blow up out of the ground in the show.
Mm-hmm.
And did you ever see those Elephant commercials?
Oh, yes.
There were the elephant little blow things that like had the big tubes and the butterflies would come up. I was like, ooh, they have elephants in the show. It's so nice. But the real reason I wanted to come back to this is because when you think about what is there now and where Camp Minnie and Mickey is, it's Avatar. Mm-hmm. And Avatar is just a carbon copy of Pocahontas. So in a way, it's basically the true spiritual successor, and spiritual in many ways, and spiritual in the sense of this is the same exact story, and spiritual in the sense of Joe Rohde got super spiritual when he was making this part of the park.
I like that. That's a nice little tie-in. That would have been a really good trivia question. You just wasted a good trivia.
Oh no, I have another that you're not going to get. So I'm happy.
Thank you. Thank you for your faith in me.
I only said it because I was like, this is so obscure. I would have never known this had I not made it. But I know. But isn't that funny? Then say, oh, Pocahontas is about the same thing as Avatar almost. And
that's funny.
What do you think of Avatar Land?
It's obvious. Once again, I would just use the word impressive when it comes to Pandora, the world of Avatar. The only thing in that land that blows me away is that Na'vi shaman animatronic. I think that thing is superb, mind-blowingly brilliant. Other than that, it's exactly what I would expect. I mean, I've done whole episodes about this, but like the quick version of it is, I remember walking in, and I was walking in with a massive amount of people because I went as the park opened. And I was really watching people because I wanted to see how people reacted to it. This was early on in the land's creation. So I was like, these are people are seeing it for the first time, as am I. And I expected when people saw those floating mountains, I expected oohs and ahs. And nobody gave a crap about them. Nobody looked at them and was wowed by them. And I'm like, okay, that's a problem. And then when it comes to Flight of Passage, I think it's a very enjoyable ride. It doesn't blow my mind. To me, it's just, a better version of Soarin', but it's not mind-blowing in my opinion. So as far as I'm in the minority here, I prefer the river journey over Flight of Passage.
Wow.
Yeah,
you are in the minority. I think you are the sole person in that minority.
I've heard a couple people say that, but
really?
Yeah, I was more impressed. That animatronic's incredible. I will always be more impressed with physical sets over, and I also think that the River Journey did a spectacular job incorporating projection into it. I think it's probably some of the best I've seen. Really well done.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're missing the best part, and really what I meant by asking this question is the best part. Do you know what my favorite part of the world of Pandora is?
The food? I don't know. What?
No. The like I eat food. I can't afford that. I love the pre-show to Flight of Passage. The unscripted, random, stumbling scientist guy gives me life. He's like, all right, so you're here to get a banshee and you're sick and you're cured. How much longer? 3 minutes? Okay. Let me think. Okay. So, let's get you your avatars. All right, there's your avatars. How much more time? It's just, you can see him reading. It's so funny. I mean, did you notice this? Am I the only person that finds this hilarious?
Well, I believe there's several different versions of this, isn't there?
Is there?
I think there's more than one pre-show. And yeah, I did find that the pre-show stuff was very long.
Well, there are two pre-shows.
Yeah.
Right. Is it a different character or is it the same guy?
I don't know if it's a different character, just different dialogue. I think they tried to make more than one experience, is what I've heard.
Okay, because my experience was this guy was not prepared. This was the first guy. Maybe that's exactly what I was supposed to think, but I was just cracking up. I was like, this is amazing. I want all pre-shows to be completely improv. Like whenever you go to Epcot and you get on Mission Space, they're just like, all right, so you're at NASA and oh boy, you're gonna get in a spaceship, and we're gonna really fly you out there. All right, let's get you into the next room. Like just every pre-show video should be completely improvised, one take, no do-overs.
So yeah, you're a big fan of the improvisational style. It was probably just all acting, though. You know that somebody had
He did a
influence
great
on
job as acting as a bad actor.
There you go.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So that's your favorite part of Pandora, the world of Avatar?
Oh, hands down. The
All right.
Well, I mean, it's fine.
Until it's extinct, and then it'll be like the greatest attraction ever made.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait for that. I can't wait to love it. That's how I feel about everything. I'm like, I can't like this right now, but I can't wait till it's extinct, though. But yeah, no, it's fine. I loved Flight of Passage for what it was. It's still a simulator. I never think a simulator is bright and vibrant enough. I always think it's a little too screen-y. It just didn't feel like it popped. And also 3D doesn't do it for me. I have great depth perception and I can do magic eye posters really well, not to brag, but I just can't. I don't know. The simulators I can never see the 3D they're wanting me to see.
Really?
I mean, yeah, it's just like, especially with Mickey's, like some of the like 3D, like Mickey's PhilharMagic's a good example, although it's completely different in the sense is that I never see that 3D very well. And then Avatar, I saw the 3D well. It's just that I can still tell that it's 3D. It's just not, it's not immersive. It just feels like I'm in a 3D movie, which is what Avatar was. So props on them. So
yeah. Interesting. Anything else you want to say about Camp Minnie-Mickey before we move on from there?
I do not have anything else on Camp Minnie-Mickey.
I just want to touch on Countdown to Extinction because this, although it's been there since day one, and it's primarily still there, but it did change names in 2000 because of the film Dinosaur, which was a Disney film that came out then, and you know, primarily the reason why this land was built over Beastly Kingdom, they say, because they knew this movie was coming out. So they did change the name from Countdown to Extinction to Dinosaur, which I've experienced both. Now, something I was reading, and I don't remember this, but apparently there's the portion at the end of Dinosaur, like the Indiana Jones ball sequence, where like right at the end of the finale, where the big Carnotaurus comes out toward you, and you dive under him essentially. Apparently, at the beginning, it was a giant meteorite and not the Carnotaurus you were driving toward. Yeah, that's what I read. I don't remember that specifically, so I cannot confirm nor deny, but it sounds about right. I mean, the attraction was called Countdown to Extinction. That sounds like an appropriate finale, but they eventually wanted to bring the Carnotaurus back into it since this creature had been following you the entire attraction.
I've never heard that, but I don't doubt it. Because that, I mean, the boulder and the meteor, that makes sense. I've never heard that was actually a meteor, but I'm not as well versed in this ride as others, mainly because it still exists. But and also just I think it's a good ride. It's a great dark ride, especially for Animal Kingdom. Well, it's Animal Kingdom's only now, not counting Pandora. Do they have that many other dark rides?
I think that was the only one for a very long time.
Yeah.
I think, unless I'm blanking. No. It's tough to be a bug. It's a 4D movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's nice. And it's nice in the sense that they brought that really unique ride system over to Florida. And because it was Anaheim and, Indiana Jones Adventure, which was so well loved. And it was nice that instead of just copying Indiana Jones Adventure, which is what apparently they're about to do, is that they actually just, let's create a new story. And I thought it worked well. So.
Yeah. So that was pretty much it as far as the stuff that was there and gone, and lots of changes have come to Disney's Animal Kingdom over the last 20 years, but
you forgot one thing that's very important.
What am I missing?
The McDonald sponsorship
of Countdown to Extinction, right?
Of the entire Dinoland, essentially.
Okay, yes.
Is that I think they served chicken nuggets for a while, I believed.
Were they Dino Nuggets?
I don't know. Probably not. But we had this when Animal Kingdom opened. They had a toy pack with all of. Did you remember this toy pack?
I do remember this. Yes, and the Happy Meals. Yeah,
and they had a Beastly Kingdom toy in there, which is like
yes.
So they're gonna make it. And it was like an adult Figment on steroids. Someone wrote that online, and I was like, I love that. But yeah, so my favorite, I just want to bring this up for the sole purpose of saying the phrase "Countdown to Extinction," sponsored by McDonald's, because I love that phrase. That's one of my. I just want to get a plaque that says that "Countdown to Extinction," sponsored by McDonald's. It just sounds perfect to me. Sounds about right.
You need to find an old sign or banner or something to.
Absolutely.
That's funny. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap it up here, which means
it's trivia time.
Okay, Kevin, do you want to hit me with the trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
You hit me first, please.
Okay. So when Disney's Animal Kingdom opened, they had a slogan that they used a lot, and it was a made-up tribal word to describe Disney's Animal Kingdom. Do you know what this word was? It was a word, it sounds like something else in English, but they made up this word to make a point about Disney's Animal Kingdom, and it was on all the marketing materials.
Kungaloosh, that's my official guess. I don't know.
Kungaloosh. It's a good guess, but no, it was Nahtazu. They made up the word.
Oh my gosh.
Nahtazu, I believe is how they spelled it. And, you know, Nahtazu sounds like not a zoo.
Yeah.
And it was always like, and remember, Disney's Animal Kingdom is Nahtazu.
Oh my, that is so cringy.
Yeah.
Man, that's bad.
I don't know how long that lasted, but I vividly remember Nahtazu being a thing.
That's very interesting. That was a good trivia point. Mine is much more specific than that.
Okay.
I'm laughing because this is the most specific thing ever. So on the Radio Disney,
oh goodness,
on the Radio Disney River Cruise or whatever they called it, where were the hosts were supposedly broadcasting from?
Inside the Tree of Life.
Gosh darn it! It was on top of the Tree of Life, but I'll give it to you. That was yes.
Yeah, see, you thought I wouldn't get it. I got it.
That's so annoying. Oh, you're good. This is why you're the host. You're good. You deserve this.
I don't always get them, but that one, yes, yeah, they were from. I actually almost mentioned it when we were talking about it, so I'm glad I didn't.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you got that one. I talked it up, and I feel so dumb now, and I didn't know Nahtazu.
It's all good.
I was gonna guess the other whatever Pocahontas' greeting was. I forget what that was.
Oh, I don't even know. I have no idea.
I don't know. Whatever. She like taught it to the kids, and I was like, "Is that a real thing?"
Gotcha.
Anyways, so yeah. Well, that's great. You got it.
Excellent. Anywho, thanks, Kevin, for coming on the show. Remind folks where they can find you if they want to check out some more of Defunctland, which I highly suggest.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff, for having me. If you want to check it out, go to youtube.com/Defunctland and watch some of the episodes, and there'll be links there to everywhere else that I am on the internet. But yep, just go to youtube.com/Defunctland. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Thank you for being part of it. And before we get going, I want to remind all of you guys that our social media accounts can be found over at DisneyCoastToCoast.com. Make sure you leave a 5-star rating and review on iTunes if you're enjoying the show. It helps other Disney fans find the show more easily. And of course, check out Trivia Time over on Instagram, which is happening on Thursdays now. For a long time, Trivia Time has been part of Disney Coast to Coast, but it's always been me and my guest having Trivia Time, but now you can be part of it over on our Instagram stories. Make sure you follow DIZNEYCTC over on Instagram. Other than that, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for watching Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePaoli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.